Caribbean, the United States, Europe, Asia, and the rest of the world, engaging all Dominicans at home and abroad on our agriculture, our economy, our foreign relations, our justice system, our governance, our international competitiveness, our education, our world-class festivals and entertainment, sports, politics, regional cooperation, and much more. Globally positioning Dominica within the Caribbean. Join the conversation on the Global View on Q. Tune in, call us, have your say. The Global View on Q, only on Q95, the big station.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Good
Good
evening,
evening.
you at home or in your vehicles, listening on the radio or on the internet in Dominica or abroad. Thank you for choosing Q95. This is the Global View on Q. A very, very warm welcome to all of our Q family listeners at home and globally. I'm Sheridan Gregoire, Mr. G. It's Tuesday, the 12th of August, 2025, the 30th Tuesday of 2025, and it's right now just about 8 p.m. in the studios at Q95, the big station. We're live on our radio frequencies on QTV, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Please follow us at Q95 FM Radio. Share the live, like our pages, or on your phone numbers are on the homepage of our website at www.q95da.com. Get the latest breaking news and reviews on Q95 because you know it's true if you hear it on Q. We continue to revive the spirit of graciousness, love, and peace, and prosperity and unity among our Kalinago and Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters. It is our 30th Global View on Q show for 2025, and we continue to engage with you, our local, regional, and global Q family listeners and friends of Dominica at home and abroad. My co-host tonight, Justice Dr. Irving Andre, our guest, our engineer, Anthony Drago, John Robin, President of the Dominica Manufacturers Association, and former Dominica UN Ambassador Crispin Gregoire. Tonight, we discuss the governance of fresh water and the viability of water and agribusiness industries in Dominica. We do have great water and great soil, but for some reason, we are not making good use of these resources for generating export earnings. So here are a few talking points for tonight. It is often said that water is life, a crucial resource in various industrial sectors, serving multiple purposes as cooling, cleaning, processing, and as a component in products. It is used to manufacture a wide array of items, including food, pharmaceuticals, and paper products. Industries also rely on water for power generation, with steam turbines powered by water and hydroelectric power plants utilizing water's energy. Water is essential for a multitude of uses, directly and indirectly, including drinking, cooking, bathing, cleaning, agriculture, industry, transportation, recreation, sanitation, maintaining ecosystems, and a whole host of other uses. But the world right now is focused on water as a scarce commodity, right now, as we speak. We also see water insecurity around us right now in the Eastern Caribbean, a water crisis which deserves a greater attention by the individual governments and collectively by CARICOM. Dominica, in fact, has a surplus of fresh water, and we ask, what does that mean in terms of business opportunities for Dominicans? Dominica has an abundance of great soil and great water quality just running out into the sea every day. So why are we not making greater use of our soil and water resources? Tonight, we will look at the governance of fresh water in Dominica. We will examine if it is necessary to reconfigure DOASCO and its attendant legislation to broaden its mandate to improve the provision of domestic water needs and to prepare it for export of water. We will look at the viability of water and agribusiness industries for Dominica and how should this be structured. The question is, if not water and agribusiness, then what? Why are these important resources being so neglected for so long? Why have local efforts to harvest water for export largely failed? Why are local water rates so high? Why are the authorities trying to destroy Josephine Gabriel and company who have been bottling water and contributing to the development of Dominica? Why give incentives to import non-nutritional canned items instead of incentives for investments in water and agribusiness? Where are the incentives for locals to invest in the processing and distribution of agribusiness products and bulk water? Is foreign investments in water a desirable thing at this time? Are incendiary devices being used to destroy rather than develop local water businesses? Who speaks for Dominican businesses right now? We will make some suggestions on the way forward for water and agribusiness development investments in Dominica. So, thinking forward towards 2028 or to Dominica's 50th anniversary of independence, what are the people's expectations for their own well being? Are they satisfied with their current conditions? We will look forward to the suggestions of our panel, our listeners, callers, and viewers on Facebook and on YouTube on what needs to be done to move beyond this economic stagnation and oppression. So, my co host, Justice Dr. Irving Andre, distinguished guest engineer Anthony Drago, John Robin, president of the Dominica Manufacturers Association, and former Dominica Union Ambassador Crispin Gregoire will all share their ideas and suggestions on the governance of fresh water and the viability of water and agribusiness industries in Dominica. In other words, we have great water, great soil, but we are not making use of these resources for generating export earnings. They will also hopefully relate how the 2025-2026 national budget promotes island for sale, land for refugees and foreigners, with no plans or ideas for the way forward for national development, growth, and generational wealth creation in agribusiness and in water industries, or for Dominicans like Josephine Gabriel and Company, like Dr. Dale Dangleben, like Bellows, like Breezy's Mat, Suki's Gary Hotel, etc., etc. Our panelists will hopefully comment on my talking points and on their own talking points and more with a view to moving forward on a path to real independence, real growth, return of a strong middle class, and production and accumulation of generational wealth again in Dominica. So, as usual, we invite you, our Q family and friends of Dominica, to help us give our usual huge shout out, hugs, love, appreciation, and a big thank you to our farmers, to our healthcare providers, to our frontline workers, police and fire officers, teachers, doctors, nurses, public and private sector patriots, and friends of Dominica at home and abroad. And as I always say, we welcome each and every Dominican and friend of Dominica to the Global View on Q. We embrace you wherever you are tonight, in every nook and cranny, in every village, in every community at home in Dominica, in the region, and globally. Thank you, Sherwin, keeping us on air. Big up Lambi and the console directing the traffic. We will take your calls. As you know, the people's voice is always a priority on Q and on the Global View on Q. So call us anytime during the program. Lambi will signal us when you call. Co-host panelists and will expand and deliver on their own ideas. So I go now to Justice Dr. Irving Andre for his opening remarks to get the ball rolling. Dr. Andre.
Thank you, Mr. G, and let me welcome the fellow panelists. We look forward to hearing their views on this issue, which is a very important and critical one in Dominica, particularly at this juncture. Let us thank your listeners for taking the time off to be with us this evening. We hope to ensure that their efforts to listen to us were not in vain. Let me give you some background facts with respect to why the whole question of water is so essential and critical today, probably more so today than a decade ago. Here are some current estimates with respect to the water problem that is faced worldwide and also regionally. For example, 1.1 billion people lack access to water. 2.7 billion people find water scarce. Two-thirds of the world population experience severe water scarcity for at least 1 month each year. The World Vision, this organization, estimated in March of 2025, a few months ago, that 703 million people, or one in 11 people worldwide, lack access to clean water. Another organization, water.org, estimated that $260 billion is lost globally every year due to lack of basic water and sanitation. But this is not a problem which is only confined to the international community. In 2024, an article by a United States professor called Farah Nibbs noted that the Caribbean is in a water crisis. The Caribbean. There have been shortages of water. Well, there are perennial shortages of water in Antigua, certainly in Barbados, in Jamaica. In St. Kitts, they've had to resort to water rationing. In Grenada, on May 10th, 2024, the Grenadian government declared a water crisis leading to water rationing. And you may ask, what is the source? So certainly in the Caribbean in particular for water shortages. You have one, rapid urbanization and industrialization. Two, you have water-intensive tourist industry. Three, weak water infrastructure governance. Now, with respect to the first source, that is not really a crisis, a critical problem in Dominica. What is a greater problem in Dominica is the point number three, weak water infrastructure governance. In Dominica, what we've experienced and what we've bore witness to is the desecration of Dominican rivers, indiscriminate dredging, facilities for the repair of roads being built on riverbeds, wholesale removal of boulders, thereby removing the natural impediments to the continuous and persistent flow of water into the sea. And we continue to have relatively high costs of water, despite the fact that we are experiencing a shrinking population. So it is a dire indictment of our governance that we in Dominica, the so-called land of 365 rivers, are having those problems. But that is not the only, in my view, these are not the only problems that beset Dominica in terms of water. Historically, we have a proud history of utilizing our water resources. Let me give you a few examples. In the 1930s, there was a gentleman, a business person called Dick Johnson in Portsmouth. He later went to Roseau, who started bottling soft drinks in the 1930s, for God's sakes. Elias Nassif also used our water resources to start a soap industry in his kitchen in the 1940s. The old Ducre, N.A.N. Ducre's father, was manufacturing wine in the 40s and 50s. You have Bello obviously added value to our water resources going back to the late 1940s. We have Josephine Gabriel using local water to make Quenchy initially, and I believe in 1992 started bottling Dominican water under the label Trois Pitons water. You remember we had Dumford Juice from the 40s until 1968 when the company went into bankruptcy. But we have deliberately not tapped into that resource to add value to our water resource. The answer is why. You mentioned a couple of times Josephine Gabriel. They have a long history. As early as 1992, they put into place a quality control mechanism whereby they would send random samples of their product abroad to be tested. Whoever was doing the testing did not know the source of those samples, so that they had an independent mechanism to test their products. Unlike some foreign workers who build so poorly that your whole roof of a school collapsed, and we are still waiting to find out what type of assessment that is going to be done. Josephine, the founder of Josephine Gabriel, Louis Gabriel, was given the Cicero Award for business, for God's sakes, in 2006. And yet in 2025, we hear some pompous proclamation that the company should be investigated by the Bureau of Standards, guys, for the quality of the product. On the very eve of the company seeking to establish 2 other water bottling plants for export. And you have to ask yourself, why this hostility to local industry? Why is it the case that the enabling environment to enable these companies to expand is not being created? On the contrary, it is being destroyed. It is being destroyed. Some of these local companies, including Josephine Gabriel and Company, they pay Social Security, unlike some of the foreign workers in Dominica or companies. Not a penny. They do not get not half as many importation concessions as these foreign persons, despite the fact that they have an established history in Dominica of hiring locals, enabling them to send their children to school, enabling them to purchase a house, enabling them to create generational wealth, as modest as it is. So you have an aversion, not an acceptance, but an aversion of local industry when it comes to the utilization of our water resources. And you ask, or you should ask, how can you progress in any way when you are shutting the door on indigenous enterprise, but you're opening the door to foreign business? I'm not an economist, but in the late, this brilliant Caribbean economist, St. Lucian to be precise, said, Arthur Lewis, in one of his books, his seminal work, that the West Indies should seek to industrialize itself through a process derisively called industrialization by invitation. You get foreign companies to develop your resources. But what is the problem with that concept or notion of development? The earnings are exported. And we know that because we had our Prime Minister boast that foreign workers exported what, 220 or is it $240 million out of Dominica? And it was something to boast about. Isn't that an indictment of our self-hatred and the extent to which we detest the phenomenon of our own people progressing through industry, through using their resources, their skills, their capital to build our own industries for the benefit of our own people? So the answer is not blowing in the wind. The answer is staring us in the face as to why we have this situation where we are refusing to develop our own resources at a time when there is a phenomenal historic scarcity of water. What is it about the foreign enterprise that we love so much? Is it because of superior quality? Oh boy, go and ask the people at the Dominica Grammar School about the superior quality. Is it because of the superior building infrastructure? Go and ask apartment holders in Grand Bay and elsewhere about the perfume which emanates from the sewage system in these places. No, it is not. It is because many of these foreign companies, they have a worker which they pay. The name of that worker is Mr. Kick, and his surname is Mr. Back. That is the advantage which many of these foreign companies have, why they're being given a gold carpet to come into Dominica, because the earnings are going to be exported. And the cost of doing business will be inflated because some of that monies are being hidden in secret accounts. A country will never thrive in that type of environment. How will it? You deride your truckers an opportunity to provide a living for their families. Why? Because their trucks are not as good as the trucks owned by foreign companies. But you give these foreign companies concessions to enable them to buy new trucks, and you starve your own truck drivers of the same type of concessions, and then you mock them. It's adding insult to injury. So the answer to reverse, or the answer to the solutions to this situation is quite clear. If you don't develop your own, or if you don't assist your own, irrespective of perceived political affiliation, to develop industry, to invest in water. Go ask Arthur Martin whatever happened to his water initiative, his efforts to establish a company. Ask him what happened. Go and ask nature. Nature is no longer nature water. I think the Nature Island water is no longer in existence. But go ask them about their own efforts. Senior member of the electorate, the directorate, made a comment. They will never use Nature Island water in any official function in Dominica. And then you have this pompous proclamation that Nature Island should be investigated. So all this is by design. Now, I know many of your callers like to talk about the government is tired or they don't have ideas. No, this is deliberate sabotage. And we will never progress if that continues. Because our resources would be exported and nothing will be, or very hardly anything will be coming back. And what would we have to show for it? Nothing. Or pittance. While others grow rich at our expense, although they may not even spend 1 week in any 1 year in Dominica. So the question is, we have to repatriate our resources. We have to enable and we have to empower our local business people. We have to encourage local initiatives to bring their know-how, to bring their resources, to pool their resources, to take advantage of of our resources. Dumfruit went down in 1968. Dumfruit had acquired a reputation of being one of the best canned products in terms of orange grapefruit juices in the Caribbean. And there was no need, there was no recognition that with our resources, whether it's oranges, grapefruits, mangoes, there is a need to incubate in agro-industry to take advantage of these natural things that we have. But the commitment is not there. You ask Mr. G initially, if not water, then what? That's a great question. If not water, then what? And I should say basically, if not an effort, a sustained effort to take advantage of that resource, then we are doomed indeed. Another reason, another urgent reason why we should make this of national concern is the whole phenomenon of global warming. I'm not an environmentalist, but I know at least something about it. It is becoming hotter. You don't have to take it from me. You're in Canada, Mr. G. And I know that you probably have air conditioning in your fall cage. But the fact of the matter is temperatures are rising. And hence more water is being consumed. So it looks that we have resources where we can fill a dire need, not only regionally, but internationally. But we're not doing anything, basically. So the answer is clear. The reasons to reverse this decline is clear. We don't have to be rocket scientists to understand what we need to do to improve our lot, to make better use of our God-given resource. But the question is simple, Mr. G. Is there the political will to do so? And I stop right here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Irvin. Thank you for those wonderful opening remarks. Now, Crispin, billions of people in the world are facing water shortages, water crisis. Right here in the Caribbean, several islands are facing a water crisis. Water shortages all the time. Dominica is sitting smack in the middle of these islands. We have an abundance of water, fresh water just running out into the sea every day. What it is that we need to do, for God's sake, to supply some of this water to these markets that are crying out for water. Right now, I believe there is a forum in South Africa on water. So the world is paying attention to the water short. In fact, it's being said that water will be the next oil of the world. So your thoughts, Crispin? You're muted.
Okay, good evening, Mr. G, and
Yes.
good evening to my fellow presenters this evening, and good evening to all the listeners of Q95 at home and abroad. Sheridan, I'm very pleased to be on this panel discussing water. Certainly one of the scarcest commodities on the planet, and increasingly getting scarcer. I should say that first of all, I should say that fresh water, as we know, is essential for life, but it only comprises 3% of the Earth's total water, which most of it is locked away in glaciers and ice caps. So of that 3% of fresh water that's on Earth, I would say almost half of it is locked in ice. And that's one of the things we've been talking about recently when President Trump started talking about Greenland and the US interest in Greenland. Although he doesn't believe in climate change, but he does accept that Greenland glaciers are melting. And the direct impact of that, we in the islands are going to feel it, because when Greenland melts under the pressure of climate change, then it will increase the water in the oceans across the world, and it will have a direct impact on islands. And that is why sea level rise is an existential threat to islands like ours. So there is not much water on Earth. In fact, most of the water on Earth is in the oceans. It's salt water. So the fresh water is not abundant, and many countries are water stressed in the world. Now, Dr. Andre mentioned that a figure of millions of people who live in water stressed areas. So a lot of people around the world don't have access to clean water. And I was in Dominica recently, and I'll tell you, that luxury, we think that water is something that we will always have. Yes, we may have water for a long time based on where we are located and also our topography, that the mountains that we have, if you notice them very closely, clouds always crest on the top of these mountains, and these mountains force the clouds to release their precipitation, their water, and that water, when it runs off from these mountains, it gives us this, what we call 365 rivers. That figure, I don't know. I'm not able to. I'm not like Dr. Andre, who can count very well. I don't know about 365 rivers. I know that I've learned that since I was a child. All I know is that Dominica, and correct me, Mr. Drago, I think Dominica has about 12 water systems, and you might speak to that better because you've been working on that for many years. But we literally have 12 river basins. That's what I mean to say. 12 river basins that gives us these 300 plus streams, mountain streams. Now, having said that, I wanted to say that there are things that are impacting adversely our water. In even Dominica, that has a lot of water, there are things that's affecting that water. And if we're not careful, we could end up being a water stressed country in the next 20 years. I don't know. I don't want to project that. However, there are two things that could impact our water adversely. One of them is already impacting our water, and that is deforestation. We have cut trees in places where we shouldn't cut trees, and that has affected our water table. There was a time when we got 400 inches of rain a year. That figure is much lower. It's down into the 300s, and I don't know what it is now, but Mr. Drago might be able to shed some light on what the water table in Dominica looks like. Mr. Gregoire, Mr. G, he mentioned the global concern on water, and I wanted to address that because of water scarcity, the world is very focused now on how to address that problem. And the first thing that happened was when the Sustainable Development Goals were the 16 goals were developed and adopted by the UN. One of the goals has a specific focus on water, and that is goal number 6. And goal number 6 is calling for the acceleration of the implementation of that goal, which is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. That is a goal that the UN set for the world, and that goal is still there, but we're falling short. Consequently, in 2023, the UN, after many years, had not held a conference on water. But in 2023, it was determined by the member states of the United Nations that water must become a major priority for the world, and access to water. So there was a UN water conference at the UN headquarters in 2023. And that opened up a whole set of discussions and resolutions and commitments to address water scarcity. And the UN decided that they would have a follow-up conference on water, and that is going to be held in the United Arab Emirates in 2026, next year in December 2nd to the 4th, in I believe it will be in Abu Dhabi. I'm not absolutely sure. It could be in Dubai. However, that conference is being co-hosted by United Arab Emirates and the government of Senegal, those two countries. Mr. G mentioned the meeting that is about to start in South Africa. Actually, it started tomorrow, from the 13th of August to the 15th of August. 13th, 14th, and 15th, you have the Water Investment Summit, organized by the African Union and the government of South Africa to address water challenges and water scarcity on the African continent. Now, I was invited to that conference. Unfortunately, I can't go to South Africa. I'm still in New York. But one thing I did say to the organizers was that the Caribbean islands, especially the Eastern Caribbean states of CARICOM, are water-stressed islands. And because the Caribbean is part of the 6th region of the African Union, therefore, the Caribbean should be a focus for this conference in South Africa. And today, when I was looking at who would be presenting at the conference, I saw that Barbados, the Prime Minister of Barbados, was invited to that conference. So it means at least she, as the chair of CARICOM, will raise with the African Union the real concern about water scarcity in our region. I noticed that Prime Minister Motley will be represented by one of her one of her ministers. So she will not be at the conference, but Barbados will speak at the conference and hopefully will speak on behalf of CARICOM. I think there's some facts that I would like the public to be aware of as far as scarcity is concerned. You know, they are like eight facts that the public should be aware of. One is that fresh water is limited and essential. We all know that. Without water, we can't sustain our ecosystems, agriculture, and communities. And second fact is millions lack access to clean water. I've already mentioned that. Third point is that rivers are drying up. And we see that even in Dominica. Even in Dominica, we are beginning to see rivers drying up. Fourthly, climate change intensifies scarcity. And climate change is a real threat to water, to fresh water, because it causes shifts in temperature and the level of precipitation patterns decline, and that alters the water flow and the availability of water. Climate change also alters rainfall patterns. So you have longer periods of droughts. And we see that in Dominica, and we see it worse in our neighboring islands that have less rainfall than us. And that impacts the availability of water. Now, having been in Dominica in the last few weeks, I did experience what many Dominicans experience is the WASCO will announce that they're closing certain water in certain areas, and that's becoming like a weekly occurrence. And it is because we're seeing water flow is declining, and the WASCO has that challenge of having to manage the water flow that is reduced. So I also wanted to mention that wetlands, which are very important for generation of water, are disappearing. And unfortunately, in our country, we are destroying our wetlands. You look at where hotels are being built in wetlands. Disregard for things like our national park legislation that is supposed to ensure the viability and sustainability of wetlands. And the mangrove wetlands we have around Portsmouth are being destroyed. And we see even people who are in earth-moving equipment dumping earth in wetlands. This is all dangerous, and it's being allowed. No one is paying for those things. The other thing is that agriculture drives water use. Well, fortunately for us in Dominica, we tend to survive on rain-fed agriculture. We don't have much irrigation in Dominica. I know that the government years ago wanted to do a big irrigation project in Casabruce, but that did not realize the objectives there. And then there is the growing population in urban centers. You're looking at the Roseau metro area has grown substantially in the last 30, 40 years. So there are more people in that area, in the Roseau catchment area. And so that means more water use. And then if you add tourism, growth of tourism is good because it brings income, but it also stresses your water. Now, last thing I want to say about Dominica, which is a real concern to me, and Hurricane Maria showed that challenge, that we have not invested enough in water to ensure that we will always have water. Our big problem is that we have no water storage capacity across Dominica. When we get a hurricane and all the rivers now are impacted by the silt from landslides and what have you, you can't you're not able to drink that water, you better find a source somewhere to go and find water, right? So none of these villages, not even Roseau, has a storage capacity for water. So if a hurricane hits us today, we will have no water tomorrow because water is not stored. And the future of water in Dominica, we must address this question of storage. So, Mr. G, I think I will stop here on those points and just say to the Dominican people that thank God we are well endowed with water, but we must not waste it. And that is what's happening to our country. We've been wasting water. When I think of the last 25 years, we've wasted billions of gallons of water. I'm told that about 1 billion gallons of water goes to the ocean every day. That we only use 20% of the total water on Dominica. Only 20% of it is used for giving households water. We have a small manufacturing sector, and Mr. Robin will talk about that and the water there. But we are wasting water as a country, and I think the time has come for us to deal with that question squarely and earn income from the water endowment we have. Thank you, Mr. G.
And thank you, Crispin, for these very instructive remarks. Now, Anthony, I want to come to you because you've been in the water business in Dominica for years. You've done quite a bit of work there. I believe you've even assisted people in Grenada with the water projects there. I mean, after all this thing you've heard about all the statistics, all these billions of people who are stressed for water, right there in the Caribbean, neighboring territories have water crisis. We have all these billions of all these gallons of water going down into the sea every day in Dominica. We experimented once. You might know about this. We experimented once with bulk water exports. That died. And basically, we're down to square one in the sense that I've even heard recently. I mean, and Dominica is a country that could support many different water bottling projects and bulk water projects as well, because all this water is just going out to the sea. But then we hear, instead of encouraging locals to go into business and expand their business, we hear this criticism of a very reputable local company, Joseph and Gabriel and Company, on the caps of the bottled water. What do you make of all of that, and what do you see going forward?
Okay. Good evening, Mr. G. Let me say it's a pleasure to be here on this program. I feel very honored to be asked. Good evening to my fellow presenters, Ambassador Crispin, Justice Dr. Andre, Mr. John Robin, Lambi, and Showin, technical side of things. Good evening to the listeners and everyone. As Mr. G said, I'm Anthony Drago, and I'm here in my capacity as an engineer, mechanical engineer, a construction engineer, a project manager. I'm also a host of a program called This Week in Interview on TDN, where we handle different programs on a Wednesday evening. So good evening to my listeners who might be listening in the audience, because we intersect, our audience intersect, Mr. G. So we're talking about water, and I was fortunate to have been exposed to water very early. I came back to Dominica in 1990 as an engineer after being educated in the US. And my first project in Dominica was the cruise ship berth at the Cabrits. That was my first project. I started as a project engineer, and I was made project manager on that project. And then we came down and did the expansion of the Deepwater Harbor. I'm mentioning that because on the project at the Cabrits, we also built a pipeline that took water from a Picard intake to the cruise ship berth, and Dominic was able to sell water to the cruise ships when they call in at the Cabrits. And also at the Deepwater Harbor as well, there's a storage tank at Mont Daniel, 1 million gallon capacity storage tank at Mont Daniel, that has a direct line to the port at Focolé. And so the ships when they come into port at Foco, they can also purchase fresh water, fresh Dominica water. In addition to that, I worked as the manager of the engineering department at the WASCO for a couple of years. And during that time, we also created facilities that connected water to the cruise ship berth on the bayfront. And so when the cruise ships come on the bayfront, they can also purchase water for their use. And so I happen to know that a lot of the ships, when they know they're coming to Dominica, they try to arrive in Dominica with their tanks, um, not empty, but as close to empty as they can tolerate so that they can get the high quality Dominica water for their ships, cruise ships, cargo ships, and so on. They love to replenish their water supply when they are in Dominica because Dominica has top quality water. There are very little sources of water anywhere in the world that can compare to the quality of water that we get in Dominica and requiring minimal treatment. And so what I would say is that uh, as Dominicans, as Dominica, water should be central to our identity, the identity of Dominica and the identity of Dominicans should be tied to water because that is an incredible thing. Water is essential for life, second only to air. And we can even say maybe it's even first before air because when we are in the womb, we don't breathe air, we get our oxygen from water. So, and water has no substitute. There is absolutely no commodity, no product on planet Earth that we can substitute for water. And so the inhabitants of Dominica, are sitting on a treasure that is essential for life, has no substitute, available in abundance, of the highest quality, and requiring minimal processing. I mean, if ever there was a, a perfect storm that should result in a very vibrant and very robust industry, Dominica is sitting right in the center of all of those factors that you would need to have a very vibrant water industry. And so I think what is going on in Dominica is that we are not aware of what we have. It's almost like in the 15th century when the Europeans arrived in some of these places that they eventually colonized, and they see the locals with gold, as we would say in Dominica, just playing gold with gold. And they're like, what? These people don't know the value of it, and they exchange it for trinkets. The difference is that gold is not essential for life, but water is. And so also information was not as available. And so we don't have the same excuse because there's no reason why we as Dominicans should not know the value of water and how blessed we are to be sitting on that. The reason I'm starting there, Mr. G, is because if as a people we recognize water as a commodity and the value of the water, everything else will flow from that. For one, we will know that we need our forests so that our water can be replenished and not, well, we get high rainfall and it flows out and then we have to wait for another set of rain to fall for us, for our rivers to rise. We need our forests to slow down that flowing of water to the sea. Because as Dr. Alan Williams says, water is always on the move. It just comes through our life for a moment, but it's constantly flowing to the sea. And so it has to be constantly replenished. And Dominica, with our mountains, with the trade winds that blow towards Dominica has that advantage where our water supply will be constantly replenished. It's just a matter of when it's replenished, how long can we keep it so that we can benefit from the fact that we are the stewards, we are the guardians that of that water supply. Now, in terms of a water industry, to answer the question is why has Dominica not been able to establish itself as as having a vibrant and a robust water industry? And it goes back to what I say that we are not aware of the value. So I listened to Ambassador Crispin talk about a water conference that's going on in South Africa, and Barbados is invited, and Barbados has a representative. I would put forward that any discussion that happens anywhere in the world, but especially any discussion that happens in the Caribbean about water, Dominica should be front and center in that discussion. Anybody who has a conference anywhere should not be thinking of inviting Barbados. Barbados doesn't have a river. They have some wells, well water. But you have a water conference and Barbados is being invited to that conference, but Dominica is not being invited. That that in itself tells the story of where we are and how we've been able to to be sitting on a treasure and not do anything with it. There was a conference in Grenada a couple of months ago, and I watched some of it. Dominica's name only came up in reference to the hurricane. Barbados was looking to import water. They didn't look to come to Dominica to import water. They looked to go to Panama to import water. We are doing something extremely wrong if there is a discussion about water anywhere in the region, and the first, after you say water, the next word that should come out of anybody's mouth is Dominica. And until we get there, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot, spinning top in modules, any one of those things that we have. Why can't Dominica organize a water summit? Why do we have to wait for somebody else to organize a water summit? Why can't we be thought leaders? Why can't we be industry leaders in establishing water? Why do we have to wait for somebody to come to Dominica to set up a water institute? Why do we have to wait for anybody to come to do anything water for us? Tourism is probably the greatest income earner in the region. If you take off Trinidad and Guyana for energy. Tourism is dead without water. And so many of our sister islands that are close to us that have water deficit are going through the expensive route of water desalination, that fails. I mean, Antigua, Anguilla, all of these islands have invested so many hundreds of millions of dollars in desalination plants, yet they still have water shortages. It is obvious that desalination is not a viable solution to the water issues in those islands. And as Dr. Alan Williams says, we should not be looking at water on an individual island basis in terms of supply and demand. With the amount of surplus water that Dominica has, we should be looking at a water portfolio management, where we look at the surplus that's in Dominica, we look at the deficits that's in the other islands, and redistribute the surplus that's in Dominica to where it is scarce. It's simple. And it's not that it sounds simple. It's extremely simple. We need a couple ships, yes, but I mean, ships are available. We need some storage capacity in those other islands, but we do it for fuel. Why can't we do it for water? It's absolutely a very simple solution. We just need, as Dominicans, to recognize the value, the potential value of water, and recognize that that resource is available, and recognize that we have customers, we have thirsty customers all around us that would die to get our water, and then just figure out a way to get it from Dominica and to get it there. And so, Mr. J, this is what I would say as my opening, that the Dominica has to recognize the value of the commodity that it has, the advantages, because it's high quality, there's no substitute for it, right? And it needs very little processing. And if we start from that point of view, we will no doubt find a way to have a very thriving and robust water industry in Dominica.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for these opening remarks there, Anthony. And when we come back to you, I would like you to address your mind with the question of deforestation and reforestation to preserve the water supply, the water sources in Dominica. As Crispin was
Sure.
saying, some of our rivers are drying up. But John, I want to go to you now. You're the president of the Manufacturers Association of Dominica. So I imagine you're a voice that speaks for the manufacturers. And so you should be speaking on behalf of potential agro processors. I imagine that you're aware that many processors have gone out of business in Dominica over the years. And this is lamentable, of course. I mean, and we're aware that there is one water bottling company that is under pressure from a minister of government who's criticizing them instead of calling them privately and discussing an issue that they may have found, to see how they could fix it and see how they could encourage them and assist them to expand. Because Dominica, I'm sure, can sustain many water bottling plants. You know, if we have to look at management, a water portfolio for Dominica in terms of positioning us in the region to satisfy some of this water stress that is available in our sister countries around us. As you can see, I mean, Antigua and so on are desalinating, but it's not working. They still have shortages. So, John, let's hear your thoughts on some of this. And as we know, water is a very important ingredient into a lot of agri-processing businesses. As Dr. Andre mentioned, you had Dumb Fruit from way back when, and you had all these other companies making stuff. DCP is not surprising that DCP is located right next to that river in Maho. I mean, it's not surprising at all. I mean, there's a reason for that because it's close to water. Your thoughts, John?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gregor, our host, for having me this evening. Also, Mr. Irvin Andre, I want to recognize you, as well as Crispin Gregor and Anthony, I want to recognize you, gentlemen. I also want to say good evening to Lambi and our listening audience, nationally, regionally, and across the globe. I'm very happy to be here at this, I would say, forum, so to speak, so that we could continue to elaborate on the status of the use of water in Dominica. I must say that I'm a lover of water. I'm a scuba diver, windsurfer, swimming instructor. I mean, I love water. And Dominica, I must say, is a unique island. We are blessed with the best water in the world. We are the nature island of the world, not the nature island of the Caribbean only, but the nature island of the world. We know that 70% of the earth is covered with water, of which 3% is salt. All right, 3% is fresh, the rest is salt. And in Dominica, we have done a lot of remarkable things in terms of recognizing and preserving our water resources. And this, we can say, has been done in the form of the establishment of the Mount Wapito National Park, which is roughly 16,000 acres of land. This land was given by J. Archibald many years ago, and it protects our freshwater lake, the Emerald Pool, the freshwater lake, and many other areas in that area. And also, we have the Central Forest Reserve. This also protects a lot of our water. And we have the Northern Forest Reserve. In addition, we have also selected the Cabritz National Park and the Sophia Scott said Marine Area. These are areas that the governments have recognized that are critical to the preservation of our water resources, because I also happen to have had the privilege of spending almost 15 years in Forestry and National Park. So I've gone around and have seen what we have. So when I speak about forestry and national park, I know what we are talking about. And our water is very clear. It's very unique. Now, in addition to this, to the water we have on the land, we also have water in the sea, what that is belongs to Dominica. And we have 12 miles around Dominica is considered our territorial water. We have that water. And then we have our exclusive economic zone, which is 200 miles from our shore. All right. But because of the proximity of our island to the other islands, it has been measured. So we have much more space in the water than we have on land. Our island is 29 miles long by 60 mile wide, which is just 300 square miles. All right. So when it comes to water, we have a tremendous amount of potential. All right. Now, several years ago, I remember, I happened to have been during the time of National Development Corporation. I happened to have been at a conference where Mr. Michael Landa was speaking, and he was saying that Dominica needs to identify areas where we can utilize our water. And this brought about the genesis of Benjo Simos. And I must say that Benjo Simos has been around for 42 years. And we are the largest exporter of water from Dominica and have been for the past 42 years. We are exporting water, and we are selling a lot of water locally, we are selling regionally and internationally. And the market is growing. Now, we do not sell it in the form that just the water, you have the pure water, but a significant composition of our water, of our product, Benjo Simos, is water. So we are exporting water. And Josephine Gabriel is doing a tremendous job. And when you export these things, what you do, you generate foreign exchange. You contribute to GDP because, for example, we know that manufacturing contributes roughly 2% to GDP. But we in the Manufacturing Association want to increase this to 20%. So manufacturing contribution to GDP, we hope in the next couple of years it can go up to at least 20%. Also, we need to even off the balance of trade between Dominica and most of the other countries that we are importing from. Water present the greatest potential to make that happen. Also, in terms of employment generation, poverty alleviation, and also to promote the backward and forward linkages to trade. Water offers a tremendous potential to allow this to happen. Now, how are we going to do that? We think that, for example, currently there are certain incentive mechanism in place, but we need to increase that. We see that the users of water are paying industrial rate for the water, which means we are starting at a disadvantage. Technically, you're punishing us for using water. We think that we're not saying that we should not pay for water, but I think the users of water should get it at a concessionary rate. Because the problem with water, why we do not have more water operations in Dominica, it is because of cost. You find that packaging constitutes about 70% of cost. Now we have to buy the packaging overseas, you bring it here, and then you have to export it again. Now most of the operations of water are scaled. They are very large operations. And what we have in Dominica, it's still relatively small. So we need to embark on a process whereby we seek investors to come in and work with us. Or also, we are also asking the government to set up a special fund for investing in a water-oriented investment initiative. And we should be able to access that at a low interest rate. Now, this is critical because why? Water is our goal. Water is our oil, and we are not using 1% of it. I think we need to really take this very serious. Also, we are saying that we need to identify the significant operations that are involved in water within the manufacturing sector. And let us provide the necessary support system so that we can at least take 10 to 20 companies globally. All right. We should not only look at production for Dominica, but we should, how can we give them all the necessary requirements so that they can scale up and they can export globally. All right. currently we have certain incentive mechanism, but we need to improve on them. We also have a situation where we are saying that right now we are getting duty-free on our equipment, machinery, labels, and packaging. But our other ingredients, we are not getting, and some labels, they're still charging duty on some label, if it's plastic labels, for example. So what we are saying is that all manufacturing input should be duty-free. This is very critical. We need to make sure, all right? We also need to ensure that the government continue to work with manufacturers so that the manufacturers can come and we can sit at the table. I find there's a disconnect between the manufacturers and, let's say, some element of the private sector and government, because this is our country. We have gone out there, we have seen what is there, we know what we want, we know what we can do. We have so many intellectuals all around the world. How can we bring our resources together in terms of our ideas, and how can we, even our monies, bring it together, all right? And our other intellectual resources for expertise. And we develop an agenda for the development of water to transform Dominica economy from a third world to a first world. And we think that many of the Middle Eastern countries have used oil to do it. In Europe, they have gone to Africa, they have taken all African resources, bring it back and develop themselves. We think we have water, and water offers the best potential for the transformation, the revitalization, and the ushering of Dominica into the new century.
John, is that what it is, John? Okay, so that's your opening remarks, yeah?
Yeah, that's it, basically.
All right. Yeah, we'll come back to you for later. But Lambi, I want to go to you now, and just before I go back to Dr. Andre for his further comments, I want to go to you now to give our listeners the numbers that they can call and have a voice in what we're saying here tonight.
Oh, yes, I noticed that the internet is firing up. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. Those are all local numbers. The overseas access number is 305-432-9624. Let me run those numbers one more time. 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, and 305-432-9624. And we are waiting your calls. Back to you, Mr. G.
Yes, thank you, Lambi. So you just call anytime, and Lambi will just make us a signal once your call comes in, and we'll stop whatever we're doing and we'll take your calls. But Irving, your further thoughts on some of this? I mean, you really opened up the batting there tonight, giving us all the statistics of what is going on in the world. And really, we are in a position of we've been sitting on this water supply for many decades, and doing absolutely nothing about it. What are your thoughts on going forward with this thing?
Well, going forward, I think we have no option but to go forward along the lines suggested by some of the panelists, particularly the last gentleman, who's the head of the DIC. We have to empower our
head of the Manufacturers Association.
That is correct. We have to empower those of us who are in business, those of us who need the, as I said, the enabling environment, whether by way it's concessionary measures, whether by way of import substitution, to take the lead in bringing value to our local resources, whether it's pineapple, whether it's pawpaw, whether it's grapefruits, oranges, bananas, whatever, puree of whatever kind, whether it's water, whether it's creating products from our water resources. We have to look at it as that next frontier that we should seek to take advantage of. And now is a critical time that we should do that. I mean, because there is a crisis in the sale of passport industry. Many countries are very concerned about their security architecture. Many countries are closing down or shutting down or diminishing the value of these passports. which seem to offer a gateway to other countries which the purchasers do not have. So that avenue of resource is being shut down, and it should be shut down or diminished. Why? Because all the evidence suggests that the vast majority of income generated through the sale of passports never find its way to the consolidated fund. We in Dominica know that best. If we need some expert advice from someone who has an inside perspective, ask a fellow called Ralph Gonzalez, or ask a fellow called Zampoli, who is incidentally and ironically one of our ambassadors, living a Viva Loca life in New York City or the United States. So the choice or the options are clear. We pivot or we perish. It's as simple as that. We're already behind the 8 ball, quite frankly, in terms of manufacturing and in terms of industry. But we will continue to lag behind if we don't take advantage of that resource and other related resources. One of the most critical resources that we have is the human capital. But how can we speak of taking advantage of those resources if there is a steady hemorrhage of the young cohort out of Dominica? They're going out to develop other countries, their adopted countries, at a time when, because of world and geopolitical issues, the Caribbean is more attractive in the eyes not only of Caribbean persons who've moved to the United States or England or Europe, but persons from those countries who are looking for this safe haven right here in the Caribbean. And Dominica remains one of the most attractive destinations. The only thing keeping us back, quite frankly, is the sense that we don't have the stable environment, in the sense that we don't have the type of government which would provide the assurance that it is all well and good to reestablish ourselves in Dominica, whether because of the issues related to crime, whether it's because of issues related to selective policing, whether it's because of issues related to a lack of incentive to encourage indigenous production. It seems that the constellation of these issues is imposing a severe brake, as in BRAKE, on Dominica's development. And unless we take steps to reverse these issues, then quite frankly, we'll continue to be behind the 8 ball. The irony of it, we have all the resources. Somebody said, and I agree with Mr. Drago, that why is it that Barbados is invited to a water conference when Dominica is not? Because Mia speaks more, well, louder than everybody else? Huh? Do you think she speaks in Dominica's interest? Do you honestly think so? She doesn't. So we have to take the ball, but the question is, do we have the guts to take the lead on those issues, or are we just prepared to play second fiddle to the loudest voice in the Eastern Caribbean? We can do better than that, my friends. Thank you.
And thanks a lot for being Crispin, you know, we heard recently of the government looking to do a water project in Dominica with a foreign company. This is a good idea at this time. And really and truly, I believe that there are enough local people at home and abroad, Dominicans at home and abroad, would be very happy if they're incentivized to go into production of water projects and to do some extensive marketing, because the markets are there. Yes, you talk about a shortage of shipping, but I mean, let's face it, Crispin, you as a Dominica's ambassador to the UN, you had access to Turkey. I mean, isn't it possible to get a couple of ships from Turkey, for God's sake, to put in the Caribbean to boost our shipping of water to the islands? I mean, come on, let's face it. I mean, do you really believe it's a good idea to really put the water resources in the hand of a foreign company at this time?
Well, I am being a Dominican nationalist. I must say that I'm totally opposed to foreign involvement in our water resource. I think that is a resource that belongs to the Dominican people, and Dominicans should be the ones to develop it. Now, all we need from outside as far as the water industry is the technology to bottle water and to move water in bulk by ships. We don't need, we had the maritime industry in Portsmouth. One of the ways of revitalizing that maritime industry is to make water exports the focus of Portsmouth revival. And Mr. Drago talked about the water pipeline that's already at the Cabrits. I would have been more elated if the government had put forward a water endowment plan, a water extraction plan that calls for 10 water plants, not one with a foreign investor. If we are serious about water, we should build 10 water plants. And we should put a water plant in every one of the parishes of Dominica. So we have 11 parishes. Put a water plant in every single one, because every single parish has water. And that is how we would build our economy. We'd make water the pillar.
And build a lot of water storage capacity in those communities as well.
Exactly. Water storage must be part of that. We talk about climate resilience, water has to be in it. And water storage has to be part of that resilience, so that we the day after a hurricane, we still have some water stored. Now, one water plant doesn't cut it. And one water plant with foreign investment, with foreign investor, I hope that foreign investor is not going to come and begin to push an agenda to privatize water. And that has happened in many countries where the state has water rights and they now give private sector control over the water. Now, I want the Dominican private sector to be involved in water, but I am really not embracing of foreign companies in our water, because they will take it up from us. And lo and behold, I hope that foreign investor, and I'm not being chauvinist here, I hope it's not a Chinese investor, because if it is a Chinese investor, I'll tell you, we will lose that water. We'll lose it in time. So I would have liked for the government in the budget address to say, where is that investor from and who is that investor? They left it vague. And that tells me something is not right. Dominicans must guard with their lives that water we have. The sources of water, they must pay attention to the sources and making sure that these sources remain pristine sources of water. And if we're talking about exporting water, we can't take any chances with contaminating our water. Now, we have enough water to survive on and export, but we talked about deforestation, which is something that we really need to pay greater attention to. But we also have to factor in that climate change is having an adverse impact on our water table. So we have to do everything to make sure that the water basins that we own are not polluted. And I see, Dominicans must take much more pride in how they look at water. People throw garbage in the rivers. People are throwing, I saw it for myself, and no one is paying for these things. When you pollute a river, you should be charged by the courts. And there needs to be legislation for that. There needs to be, I think, in the overall plan to build the water sector, we will have to, and I was surprised that the Minister of Finance and the people in the cabinet did not speak, first of all, to give an enabling environment to water exports. That means amending the legislation that created DOASCO to make water exports a major part of the legislation and to put in governance guarantees and to manage the water and to make sure that monopolies don't emerge out of the water sector, because there will be people who will want to control our water for profit. So the government has to play a role of being the guardian of this water that we have. And I don't see that commitment yet. And I don't see the commitment yet to build a water industry, as stated by what was said in the budget. One water plant is not going to make a difference for Dominica. We're talking that we need to have at least a dozen water plants and get the ships, get bulk water moving and bottled water. Until we address those two arenas, we're not serious. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Crispin. And John, you wanted to say something here.
I just want to say that when I travel around the region, right, in practically all the islands of the, let's say, CARICOM, within the CARICOM region, we have at least maybe 7 to 8 bottled water operation. So I guess I want to differ slightly in the sense that I think when we look at how development has occurred globally, we have had foreign investment coming in. So I think we should operate on two fronts. We should have the locals being able to invest and getting the support from the government. At the same time, a certain part of our portfolio should be to allow for foreign investment. Because why? When you have foreign investment, they come with a lot of leverage. They have a lot of leverage in terms of the market, the financing, the industry knowledge, all right, in terms of the scale, that is needed to be profitable. They bring this to bear. So I think what we have to do is to make sure that in doing those investment, we do not exclude our local investors. And at the same time, we have to ensure that local companies, local individuals can also own shares in that company. They have equity in that company. And also they have to reinvest in the economy. And also we have to protect the environment. Our water catchment areas are critical. We cannot afford to have certain investment in certain locations. We need a sense of renewal of the awareness we have in the 80s, in the 70s, 80s, as far as environmental issues and concerns. For example, we have seen the development of the Cabrits Marine Reserve, the marina and the Cabrits, and we have not heard the environmentalists talking about the impact of that. So I remember way back in the day of Christopher Maxime, we have Mary Josie Edwards, and Allington James, Felix Gregoire. Anything that impact our environment, we were speaking about it, but certain things are happening in our environment, and it's as if our environmentalists have disappeared. So we need to understand that while we are looking at certain development in our water system, that will bring us much more wealth, so to speak. But at the same time, we must also understand the environmental impact some of those developments are having on our ecosystem. And it can change the life it can change our fisheries resources. All right. It can also affect the communities around. So we need to talk about those things. We need to discuss those things critically and not just look at just the development, but we have to look at the impact. Okay.
Sure. Let's take a call, Lambi.
Good evening, caller. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead, please.
We lost the call.
Oh, hold on a while. Caller, are you still there? Nothing to go.
All right. So sorry about that, caller. We probably kept you waiting a little too long. You can just call us back and we'll take your call. John, I'm happy with your enthusiasm, your optimism about this foreign investments. I mean, I too believe that we can have a certain amount of foreign capital. Lambi, you want to take a call now?
Let's try again. Caller, please go ahead.
No? Okay. So something seems to be wrong with that. Is that the overseas line?
Yes.
Something seems to be wrong with that overseas line. All right. So John, yes, I like your I'm encouraged. But I mean, for the past a couple of decades, we haven't really seen foreign investments here embracing locals and embracing equity for locals. We have not seen that, and I wish that would in fact be the case. But certainly, I would prefer if locals were encouraged. And Lambi, you take a call now.
Yes, the person is still trying. Caller, please go ahead.
Good evening, Lammy.
Good evening.
Mr. G and the panel. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. G, you're not listening to the conversation we having tonight. I really believe deep down in my heart God really loves Dominica. Because the two most important things mankind needs to live, not surviving, but to live, to stay alive, is food and water. And Dominica has both of them in abundance, Mr. G. So I'm thinking that water industry has to have some tie with agriculture, because if we're going to have a full water industry, we're going to need all the papaya, the guava, the mango, the pineapple, everything, Mr. G. So we could bring back our own juicy, our own Coca-Cola, because we're trying to be the nature island. They say with the nature island, I don't know. But if we have to be the nature island, our things are natural. We don't have to have artificial flavors. We have natural orange, grapefruit, name it. We have water, we have food, we have the forest. So it has to be a bigger package, Mr. G. We have to look at the entire thing as one. Tying agriculture with the water industry for it to be. And I want to support Mr. Gregoire Crispin. One factory cannot do it, Mr. G. One factory cannot do it. We need at least 15 or 20. And we could give the foreigners a chance to spend their money, but give them Crispin, we're going to give them 25 years. After they spend the money, they make the profit. After 25 years, it's Dominica own. So they wouldn't have a lifetime and they wouldn't have a monopoly on it. Anyway, it's a good conversation and I'm listening, Mr. G. But I always have to mention that Roosevelt Scarry had the opportunity to get tankers to move Dominica water, and instead he opted to move Iranian oil. Now, Monfared is in jail. I don't know what happened. I don't know how Dominica benefit from that alleged sanction busting deal. But if he could go and get ships to move, why can't we? This guy is just a sick individual. Mr. G, I'm listening. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. Lambi, okay, so you'll just make a signal if you get any calls coming in, and we'll stop and take the calls. But Anthony, I want to come back to you because really and truly, you've been in the water business in Dominica. You have real practical experience in there. You have the practical experience on deforestation and reforestation. And in fact, I believe that you even assisted a company in Grenada to establish a water bottling facility there. Give us a little bit more of your experience in terms of how you think we should really develop and grow our water industry. And as the last caller said, the water industry is very integrally tied to our agriculture and our agribusiness, because a lot of water goes into some of those agribusiness products. Talk to us about some of that.
All right, so Mr. G.
Let's have a call from Lambi first. Lambi, go ahead, take a call.
Okay.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I've been listening to you all talk about the water, and it's a very intriguing conversation. But it's always a conversation that we seem to be having continuously in Dominica. We come with these big ideas, we talk about them in the public forum, and then we do absolutely nothing to propel. So we know these things that you're telling us already. What exactly do we need to make this happen? Like, I would like to see the conversation go in that direction. If you're telling me that we need to have a water production system in the country. What do we need to make it happen? Do we need government to make it happen? Do we need resource in terms of capital? You know, like for me, if I'm thinking of water as a commodity to sell, I'm thinking of like resource security and sustainability. I'm thinking of infrastructure and processing capacity. I'm thinking of skilled workforce and technical expertise. I'm thinking of market access and trade logistics. And I'm thinking of like governance and investment. Nowhere in that conversation am I hearing about government as being the single most deciding factor. The deciding factor of whether we need to use what we need to export water should always come from us, the people, and that investment should be driven by us, the people. Government is just for policy and decision making. Government, we need to lobby to make sure that the right policies are in place for protecting the water. But it should never be that we're looking to government to solve our problems. I'm way past that. We need to move beyond that in Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. You notice that that John already started dealing exactly that, and I think we will spend the rest of our moments here talking exactly about what it is that you're raising, and what we need to do. Irvin, you wanted to make a quick comment?
Yeah, just to correct what the caller said, I think she's mistaken fundamentally, actually, because no one is looking at what the government should do. What we are suggesting clearly, and we've been doing that since last week, is that the government should not be sabotaging efforts to set up watering businesses in Dominica. So the caller, with the greatest of respect, is just wrong. That is what we're talking about. Do not sabotage individual efforts, whether it's Athimate, whether it's Nature Island, whether it's Trapiton Water. Do not deliberately sabotage indigenous efforts to set up watering exporting facilities. So the caller hasn't been listening. Period.
Thank you. Let's take another caller, Lami.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead. Yeah, that person is having a problem.
Okay, so it looks like there's a problem with that line. And Anthony, let me go to you now.
Okay, so Mr. G, the caller seemed to have perceived what I was about to say, because I was going to start my comment to say that we need to look at Dominica beyond the government, or look at Dominica in spite of the government. And what do I mean by that is the engineering part of it. We have the engineering part of it. As you said, I've had involvement in upgrading water bottling plants in Grenada. I have been involved in the water industry now for over 30 years. I've been in manufacturing, and I'm not the only one. You know, there are a lot of water engineers in Dominica who understand water. You know, you have the Anthony Leblanc, the Chris Sorindo, the Joseph Flosak, and all of those guys. So the engineering side we have. What we have not been able to do is to have, say, a finance person or a banking person come now and say, listen, let us put an organization together, whether it's a corporation or a cooperative or whatever it is, and let's make some shares available and organize the financing part of it. Because the tens of thousands of Dominicans who are living outside of Dominica, and it might be St. Lucians, it might be Bajans, it might be Americans, but the people who are living outside of Dominica would be able to say, okay, I have $5,000, let me buy some shares, and immediately you raise 1 million US, 1.5. It doesn't take a whole lot to get started. And so when we talk about going forward, that's the kind of thought that we need to have. That in spite of what's not happening at the policy level, we have a grassroots movement and a structure that is a collaboration between the engineering and technical side and the finance slash banking side that says, okay, I don't know anything about water, but I know water is the essential commodity. Somebody puts a plan forward that shows me how it's profitable and provides a vehicle where I can invest, and I'm going to make a return on my investment. Now, Mr. G, you also asked me to talk about forestry, reforestation, and deforestation. When we saw Hurricane Maria, we were all amazed to see the level of devastation that happened with our forests. Now, if there's one thing we know for sure, is that Dominica is going to get hit by another hurricane. I mean, we don't know when, we don't know what year, we don't know if it's next year, this year, but we know it's going to happen.
Of course.
So we also know that our forest reserve is very critical to all our water and just Dominica being Dominica. So we should have a forest management plan. Mr. Robin said he worked in forestry for a number of years, so he could inform us if there is such a thing. We have folks like Dr. Colmore Christian, who's at Clemson. His qualification is in forestry. So we have all of the resources that we need. Somehow we've not, and this is not just to Dominica, the Caribbean seem to have a hard time building a bridge where the resources from the diaspora can filter back for the benefit of our homeland. Because all of us would gladly give back to our homeland in terms of our expertise, right? So, in terms of forestry, what the WASCO, I know from my experience with the WASCO, has surveys of the water catchment area for all the major water systems. So they have surveyed and they know how many acres and where it is and so on. So the legislature can be there to protect forest activity within those water catchment zones. And if it's an event where we have no control, like a hurricane, then we could be able to step in and reforest those areas. That is required. The other aspect of it is that we have to understand that everything that we've dropped that's not in a bin that's going to be taken to the solid waste landfill will end up in a river, end up in the sea. It doesn't matter where we drop it. Rain is going to fall, it's going to wash it into a drain, the wind is going to blow it, it ends up in the river. And so, in terms of where the government has to come in, is to have a clean water legislature that governs the contamination and the detrimental effect on our rivers. So another area that is critical, and we see it every time it rains. I work in construction in the US. When we have a construction project, you have to control the runoff from your construction site. If there are any drains that are close by, you have to put they call hay bales of hay around it, so that any water that's coming gets filtered in, and so your silt and your sediment and everything doesn't come off your construction site into the waterways. You have so when you submit your plans for approval, you have to show how you intend to manage water runoff from your construction site. I think that policies like that are tenfold in terms of importance for Dominica, where because we're so mountainous, within seconds, water runs off a construction site, it's in our rivers. Simple technology. It's not even technology, just a fence, they call it a silt fence, along the river or along the counters, across the counters from where our construction is taking place. You plant that flat, it's cheap, it's plastic, and any water that's coming off your site has to go through that. The silt and the trash stays behind, and the filtered water will continue into your waterways. So it would help preserve our topsoil, and it would help minimize the silting and the sediments in our rivers. There are very, very simple steps that we can take to preserve and conserve our water. But it comes back to the point that I made up front. we have to realize the treasure that it is. Because we have it in so much abundance, we take it for granted. But as a people, we have to realize the treasure that it is. And when we realize the treasure that it is, the steps to preserve and protect it will automatically follow.
Thank you, Anthony. John, I want to go to you because I want us to respond to this lady who called and who, of course, Dr. Andre rightfully corrected her. But I mean, I don't know whether this lady has any experience in starting a business in Dominica, manufacturing concern in Dominica, and to see it grow and to become successful and to see what steps you need to take working in this environment in Dominica. But you have done it. You have been for years involved in the manufacturing sector and you've done it. Tell us about what it takes to do this successfully.
I like to describe myself as a graduate from the University of Adversities, in the sense that doing a company in Dominica is like playing Russian roulette and getting away with it. It has been a tumultuous task. And sometimes if you have to give people your experience, you end up crying. But it's a little bit alone. But let's leave that. What I wanted to say in terms of what it seems as if the listener, the person the caller was not listening very carefully, because I made roughly 10 recommendations as to what we should do. And it talk about incentive for the persons that are using the water in the companies. They should not be made to pay an industrial rate, that is making them non-competitive. We talk about that we should have, it's like I remember I was a board member of Invest Dominica once. And I remember when we had a big problem with one of the CEO, where he was saying that what the government of Dominica should do, instead of we having our policy and oriented towards investment facilitation, we should develop our own projects and we should go there and get people to come and invest in our product. Now, when you look at people like Ibrahim Traore and the new strategy we talk about, we do not want people to come and exploit our resources to our disadvantage. But if we develop our projects and we lend your expertise, or we get your expertise and we pay for it, of course, but we have strategic partnering with you, we can move even faster. All right. We think that we should look at the fact that we cannot function effectively without government. Government can stall a lot of things. The government is there, and it's not the government, it's our government. The government has to be made to work with us. We have to find innovative and creative way to work with the government, because in the final analysis, when the project succeeds, it's the government that looks good. So I think the idea of working without the government, it is possible, because I have done it a lot. But at the same time, it is unnecessarily difficult. So we have to find a way to bridge the gap between the divide between the private sector and government. And we need to work harmoniously, because we need this development. We are at the back in the Caribbean. The government also have taken lots of very good initiatives that are pushing us forward. But we are seeing with the water, we can do so much. And one of the things I've also observed is that in our development thrust, what we need to look very critically at is look at things in a holistic picture. For example, if we are going to get the result we want from our water, we must first of all do our marketing research. And the marketing research is not going to just give us what we want. Marketing has the idea of going out there, finding out what your customer needs, and you developing a product to exceed the expectation. And also you have to have your sales strategy has to be of such that it can achieve its objective. Then your operation have to be so structured that you have equipment that are efficient, world-class, and can deliver the product. Your accounting, you have to have accurate accounting, and it has to be continuous, because the variables are changing all the time. And then the financing must be brought to bear. So we need government, we need some foreign investment, but critically, the most important thing is our people must be empowered, and our people must be in control of the resources. And I want to make one more point also. The Anthony mentioned about storage of water, and this is very important. We must not miss that point. If there's one thing we should not miss tonight, is the importance of Dominica developing its own capacity to store the water, because after Hurricane, I think it was Maria, if we did not get water from the foreign sources, we would have died of thirst in Dominica. Because what I saw, and I'm speaking from my own experience, I came to town and I wanted water, and all the shops were destroyed, no shops were open, and I was thirsty. And by the grace of God, I have gotten some water from someone, and because the ration started coming, but you could not drink the water from even the rivers, because they were contaminated. All the water systems were destroyed, and access to the source and them, it was prohibitive, in the sense that you could not get to those areas. So we need to have a system around the island where we have water stored, and the water must be portable, it must be convenient, and it must be sustained. All right. So the whole idea of the water storage is very, very, very important. We cannot say we have 365 rivers and we don't have a problem with water. When a storm comes, we have a big problem with water. And I was shocked. I thought this would never have been the case with me, with anyone in Dominica. So we need to have proper water storage system in Dominica, starting almost immediately.
Yes, thanks a lot, John. And Crispin, to add to what John is saying, and to add to what this lady called and spoke about, John is telling us that we need the government to play its part. In other words, to create that enabling policy environment that is going to incentivize the local private sector to undertake this investment. Because ultimately, for you to go out there and penetrate markets, you have to be internationally competitive.
Yes.
And if other countries have more incentives than you do, you're not going to be as competitive as they are. So you need to have competitive policy environment, right? And so all your laws and all your incentives need to align. So Crispin, your thoughts on some of this and going forward. Let's take a call before you go. Let's take a call. Let's take a call.
Good evening, caller. Go ahead, please. Caller, one more time. Please go ahead. That person really has a problem.
Is that the overseas line? If it's the overseas line, maybe the line is having a problem. Crispin, let's go.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for the government to play its role. I'm a little disheartened by the fact that what is being suggested is for the government to have part ownership of this water plant they're talking about acquiring and having a foreign investor. I think that the government should really focus on the enabling environment and maybe help local investors to with the financing mechanisms, whether it's through a loan guarantee. For the National Bank has lots of money that it needs to lend out. I mean, if St. Lucia can get a loan to refurbish their stadium for some like $15 million, it doesn't take that much money to build a plant. In fact, I think on average, about 1.5 million US dollars can give you a plant complete. I'm talking here of the equipment and the warehouse. And then, Mr. Robin talked about, the market research just needs to be done. Well, the market exists. The market is right there. We don't even have to cultivate it. In fact, the moment you put down water plants, you will not have a problem selling the water. The world demands water. Now, the question is, how far are we going to send water to make it economically viable? We might not go outside the Caribbean region, because the Caribbean region is a market. It's a water stress market. So I think that the government should be thinking bigger and not on a micro level of this one plant. I'm not so embracing of one plant. If you're talking about an initiative to build an industry, give us a 5-year framework of what you would do in the first 5 years of creating the water industry, starting with this budget. But I didn't get that from the budget. All I had is a project. And you know, we've had some projects before that government got involved in. There was the Nature Island Water Limited, which I remember the late Charles Maynard and a South African investor were working on. And the government put in a lot of money into that, and it came to zero. Nothing happened. Just, in fact, I have the part of the business plan for that water project. That was very early in the tenure of this government, right? So and then I don't see. I've heard, for example, that the manager of the Wasco not so embracing of water bottling plants. Now I wonder why. He says they don't work, but I'm saying water is too scarce a commodity on the planet for any kind of water bottling of fresh water not to work. Because what we have is not purified water like what comes out of Antigua. I see people in Dominica buying blue water that come from Antigua or wherever it comes from, places that don't even have a river. Now, I would not, I want to say to Dominicans, you need to rethink that, because do you know that the pipe water in Dominica is better than any of these waters we importing, this purified water we importing from other islands that have no water? Purified water as compared to fresh water, you can't compare the two. That's what we have. We have the best water. We have what's called glacier quality water. And what comes through the pipe is good water. The only thing that it has in it that some people don't like is the chlorine, because I think sometimes the Wasco puts too much chlorine in the water. But that aside, you better off filling up your own bottle of water, and don't use plastic bottles again. Once you use that plastic bottle once, using it again is not very good, because it gets the residue from the plastic, and these things can cause cancer. So I would say to Dominicans, get a metal or glass bottle as opposed to a plastic bottle, and substitute that for buying blue water and these other brands that are in our supermarkets. And people are not buying Tuapito water. So you got to buy local. That's one. And Sheridan, here's something that I think that's going to be absolutely critical as we build a water concept and an appreciation for water. From the time our children are 5 years in grade 1 or kindergarten, they should be learning about water. So we want to create a whole new generation of Dominicans who understand water from the time they are small until they get to adults. It is only when we get that done we will fully appreciate that resource we have. Everybody. It is everybody's business to make sure that we're not polluting our water sources, that we are buying Dominican water, and we're not wasting our money buying water that's purified from places like Antigua and other places that have no fresh water. So these are the things that I think that going forward, I would like to see. I think Mr. Robin made those 10 points that he raised for a water industry is very on target. And we need to be looking at that question of an industry for export, because we're not talking yet about an industry for export. That is our hope and our dream, but I want to see concrete steps. As that lady who called mentioned, what are the concrete things we need to do? And one of them is an enabling environment. And I would like to see the government begin to look at the legislation and the governance realities of that. And when it comes to the governance question, all under the Dominican laws, all water rights are under the state of Dominica. Now, the question is, is the state going to give access to industrializing water to people who have a political affinity to the government? We need to go beyond, and that I'm talking for everything. We need to go beyond this partisanship that has become the hallmark of Dominica for the last 20 years. That kind of partisan approach to development will not work, has not worked, will never work. And then I'm appalled by the attack on Josephine Gabriel. Why? Why should the minister of government attack them in parliament when they cannot respond? I think that was totally unconscionable of the minister to be talking of Minister of Foreign Affairs of all ministers, attacking a company that is trying to develop a natural resource that we have that's wasting. So I think that the government must know its place, and its place is to put in the enabling environment, not necessarily to be an owner of a water plant. And that water plant, I really wonder whether that the steel frame of that building is still intact. I mean, that's the question for the engineers to decide. I'm not an engineer. But I'm saying that after 7 years of that steel frame for that Lou Beer Water, which used to be a beer factory, it's just been there open to the elements. I wonder what's the quality of it to put a water plant there. Frankly, I think that source is a good source where the Lou Beer Water is, but it would be better served to move the factory away from that little space where it is on the main road going to Granby. I think that plantation, that estate that the Shillingfords owned at one time, has enough land there where you could move that factory further up. And I hope that's what they're going to do and not put it exactly where it was now, because at the confluence of two streams that caused that factory to be destroyed, we don't want to put it in that risky place anymore. So that's one. And I think that really what needs to be also done is the DOWASCO has the surveys of all the water catchments in the area. They know where the best locations are for water plants. And I think they need to get to work and let us build an industry. We don't have a lot of time. If we don't make efforts to harness that water for export over the next 5 years, then we're really spinning top in mud.
Thank you, Crispin. Now, Irving, talking about an enabling environment, I mean, over the last couple of decades, we've seen several businesses close their doors. We've seen DCP, we've seen Bellows, we've seen a whole set of them close their doors. Lam, you want to take a call before I go on?
Let's try this one. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Andy,
Good evening.
Mr. G, and Mr. Andre Gregoire.
Yes.
Good night to you, brothers. I want to respond to something Mr. Robin has said, a small manufacturing industrial. I know him around for a while. And when I heard he say he still have to pay for importing his raw material at the port, I believe by now people like he was supposed to get duty free. Why not is because I think most times we need to come together, and that is the difficult thing about the cooperative manufacturing on the island. Small business people are doing manufacturing, they're not cooperating. And we're suffering from that. As Robin said, we need the government to guide us, and the government needs us, because the government will sometimes get a percentage on whatever we do and ship and return from our industrial work, from financial exchange. If we exporting, because we still live here, we're going to spend the money here. Why not? It's because look at how long, I was part of Mackenzie and by Dominica manufacturing cooperative. It fall along the wayside. Mackenzie alone couldn't do it. He had to take his own money and renting place to put our products to sell in Roseau.
And I don't know why it is so difficult. I don't know how many talk we're going to talk again. I believe by now we dare talking, as the young woman just said, and I support her somewhere. We're going to stay another 100 years speaking and asking the government for favor, and some of you all are in the metropolitan country. I mean, this is thing I see Afimate, Rosie Douglas, a few alliance fellas put their heads together, form cooperative with young people all over the island. Mr. Gregor is from Grand Bay, you know about that, you know about Pierre Charles movement. But I mean, the time of in the 70s to now are more different. The people get more self-centered and all those things. You know, there's no way we're going to go through it. I mean, we see Libla put a bank in Marigot to serve the North. We see you do a lot of land reform. I mean, look at Mackenzie. Mackenzie tried this paper towel, and Mackenzie take a serious dive, and the man have struggled. There is no way a government should leave Mackenzie in the wilderness. Especially a man like Mackenzie that was in the movement should struggle with Rosie, in spite of the little differences on the political side. But you put your people first. The government's supposed to give Mackenzie all duty free for paper towel and let Mackenzie supply government institutions. Let it supply all government office, toilets, business. Give them the opportunity to sell the paper towel for them at a reasonable price, because you get in a duty free, and then you'll be able to sell to whoever wants. But because he still had a hard competition, people were still importing the paper towel. I'm a small manufacturing. I do manufacturing. And I just can't keep up to go and buy one bottle $3 from a dealer here and $2.50 and labeling and packaging. I just can't keep up. I was in farming. Farming is the same problem. Tourism is the same problem. What I think all you should do, I'm not forcing all you. I think all you have the experience all out there. All you should try to form a association to help the small business. Look at Mr. G of the radio. The radio is powerful. Put a youth program on a Sunday afternoon and inform the people to come in, register, and let's start a movement. If Afi could do it in the 70s to go to buy a boat up in Norway on his own, there was no government, you know. Afi then just raise money in the Miracle Way and Rosie and do the thing and get young people Cassie Bruce. He start all that land reform in Cassie Bruce. He lose his job and give the people the land, just as Grand Bay. But I mean, you all up there now, all you have the powers is the same thing I tell the people all over Dominica now. As Mr. Bellet saying, so for the people in those villages have to form their own government. All the people who come down for reunion, for village reunion, they are the governments, you know. They are the ones who come and bring down ambulance. They are the ones to build health center. They are the ones to form cooperatives, bring down factories. Because the government, they're going to do it. They say they put in the money there. But you go around Dominica and ask how many small business people who get the 2% in the aid bank. No. Is the bourgeois people, children that close to the government are getting $800,000 and $700,000 out of the $35,000 for small business, and the business is not no small business. So what the young lady is saying is we to empower ourselves. We're going to stay and speak, and I mean, sorry to say it that way. I'm begging all you to form the movement, because since in the 60s and the 50s, black people do that in America. You know, they form movements to help third world countries. Up to today, you see the rich movie stars, Sylvester Stallone is giving away $600 million. You see many rich people, and that's what it does to the third world countries, the less fortunate. I believe that's the way to go. Look at man from Marigot, they can tell you. Marigot was an independent place, you know. People in the 50s was very independent.
Thanks a lot, caller. Thanks a lot. You know, I think you make some solid points here, but again, you see, Irving is speaking about the enabling environment. You see, he's talking about the difficulties that are faced with the financing. You know, I mean, John spoke about that as well. The challenges that he's facing in terms of that enabling policy environment.
You need an enabling rather than an emasculating environment to prosper. Let me give you an example. Let us make a simple comparison. With great fanfare, a U.S. airline arrived in Dominica, and I think afterwards there was a proclamation that the government guaranteed them a certain profit margin for them to continue to fly to Dominica. Am I right or am I wrong? Or my mind is just playing tricks?
You're right.
That's right. That's exactly the point. They're prepared to guarantee a fixed rate of return to a foreign company. Years ago, they also waived certain revenue duties on some over $20 million owned by a foreign company. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right.
So when these folks call and talk about y'all are depending on government, they are dreaming in technicolor. Nobody is asking for the government to foot the bill. They're just asking the government not to screw us up, not to emasculate us, not to prevent us from earning a living or setting up a business. They're not even asking to be treated in the same fashion that foreign companies are being treated. Just create the environment to enable us to grow. That's all. So that's what these apologists will never understand and will never accept. Because the truth sometimes is very hurtful. We're talking about small business. Let me use a basic example. There's a fellow from St. Joseph. I always make reference to that example. Yugaki Blessings. He's talked bitterly about his own experience, where small potential business owners were invited to make an application for funding. And he's lamented, if I recall correctly, sometimes my memory is not quite right. He spent over 2,000 grand. You understand what I'm trying to say to you? Compare the way these foreign companies are treated to those indigenous companies who are trying to add value to Dominica's natural resources. That is the bottom line. And no amount of obfuscation, no amount of whatever can hide the inconvenient truth. If you are not perceived to be dyed in the wool or red, you receive second. Go and ask Dale Dangleman recently. He was told you have to follow the processes. The man is importing medical supplies to aid Dominicans free of charge. But they're telling him, whatever, that he has to follow the processes to bring aid to his own people, guess now. This is the nonsense that's going on. But let me say something, Mr. Gree, if you don't mind, just 1 minute. We've been talking about waters, but let me acknowledge 3 pioneers who've championed the cause of rivers, who championed the cause of preservation of the landscape, the environment. I refer to Bernard Wilshire. I refer to Dr. Williams, the dentist, and I refer to Father Coffee. There are other champions, but they have toiled in the wilderness, sounding the cry, the alarm, that we are destroying our rivers. Let me ask you this. Have their cries gone heeded? Was there any response to their cries, their perpetual cries? Oh, yeah. So let us talk. Let us talk. Let's respond when there is some attempt to justify the unjustifiable. Thank you very much.
Yeah, John, you wanted to add something.
I just want to say that moving forward in terms, and I don't, based on what the other caller had said, in terms of we setting a path forward, I really want us to leave this place with the audience, the listening audience, getting that very clearly. But I want to start off by saying, I really want to congratulate Josephine Gabriel and company for the tremendous contribution that they have made to the private sector in Dominica over the past many, many years. They have demonstrated a significant level of stick-to-itiveness because now we see in Dominica, they are the only water bottling company in Dominica. We had others. they all disappeared, right? And also, one of the things, they have a major expansion plan. And we are thinking of even partnering them instead of we ourselves in Benjo Simos doing our water bottling company. We would like to let them do private labeling because we have almost 30 markets. So instead of we sell no water, we can work with them. We are seeking to collaborate with them. So I really want to congratulate management of Benjo of Josephine Gabriel and the staff. And we also want at another level to also congratulate our staff at Benjo Simos, especially my wife. She has been there basically supporting me for many years. People don't know, they don't see her, but she has been, a force behind Benjo Simos, my daughter, and also our staff. We export, as we say, water a lot. We also want to say that we want to see within the government system that there is a business facilitation, support, and development unit that interact with the private sector on a regular basis. We also want to see investment in private sector support organizations such as DMA, the Dominican Manufacturers Association, the DIC, and we want to invite the people in the private sector to join those organizations, because what makes trade function or trade work properly is knowledge, information. And these organizations are there to give us information. One of the things I want to also point out very clearly, the culture of cooperative in Dominica has changed. People no longer want to belong to organization. For example, people don't want to come to DIC and develop DIC and make DIC the organization that it is supposed to be. They don't want to come to the Dominica Manufacturers Association and make the Dominica Manufacturers Association a formidable organization. They want to stay on the side and criticize and say all kinds of things. But I'm saying it is our organization. Let us come and let us develop this organization. I just came from Trinidad and also Barbados. They had the expos, and they came together, and they do that every year. We need to have an annual or biannual manufacturing expo. We need that, and also we need to understand that for manufacturing to succeed, we must have a population that is properly educated on international trade or understand supply chain and logistics. And so we need to educate up at the primary, secondary, and the tertiary level, university level. Trade nowadays is about knowledge. And we need a core of persons that understand trade. Not only understand manufacturing, but understand international trade. So you can understand all the rules that relates to the OECS. If you want to trade in the OECS, you want to trade in CARICOM. If you want to trade in South and North America, the information that we need to exchange, it is there, but so many people do not have it. And I also want to end lastly by saying that we need to identify the ideas and translate, or the companies that are moving, like Benjo Simos, like Josephine Gabriel, and how can we put the resources into them? Or the government, let's say, for example, the government is saying, you have bad management. We're inviting you to come and take 30%, take 40% of the shares, and we will work with you. But don't say, because somebody said me, Benjo should be in China, and that's where we need to go. I said, okay, no problem. I am giving you the privilege of go ahead and set it up. You and whatever is generated from this initiative, you will get 10%. I've not seen a person in how many years, So people talk. It's easy to talk, but I'm saying we need to put our effort, where our mouth is. Don't just talk. Come and make it happen. Be an agent. Come and be the change you want to be. Come and make it happen. All right. So I'm saying there is too much talk. There is too much loose talk, and we are not doing enough. As we see right now, the African, Caribbean, and Pacific region is moving into a new dispensation. We see what's happening in Burkina Faso. We should learn from that. We want to control our destiny. We want to control our resources. We do not want to be a third world country. We want to make Dominica a first world country. Like Barbados is a first world country. Barbados has used tourism and trade. Right? We have the same potential, but let's come together and let us make it happen.
All right, John, I'll take it that is your closing remarks because the clock is run down on us. Anthony, let me go to you to make your closing remarks.
Yes, and so in closing, I want to again Thank you for inviting me to this forum, and to all the listeners who stayed with us. I want to reemphasize the point that the mindset shift that we need to have is for us to stop taking our water for granted and to understand that it's a treasure and it's a blessing and it has tremendous potential. It is actually the most critical product on planet Earth, our water, and we have it in abundance in top quality. I want to just make a quick analogy before I go. Trinidad has a pitch lake. Can you imagine setting up an operation to export pitch to Trinidad? Or you in Trinidad, you're going to import pitch, colas as we call it. That is what's going on in Dominica, right now. In the abundance of water, Dominica is importing water into Dominica. It is madness, right? So even in terms of setting up a water bottling plant, just to meet the local demand is already lucrative. As Ambassador Crispin said, the Wasco's water quality is better than the quality of the water imported. But does the Wasco market the quality of its water? Do we just take it for granted that Dominicans are supposed to know that our water quality is good and therefore they should drink pipe water instead of buying bottled water? So our marketing aspect is what we have to develop. When John says we have to make sure that our education is able to produce, I'm paraphrasing what he said, we're able to produce people with the education and the knowledge to support the industry. A big part of it has to be marketing, a big part of it has to be finance. We need those aspects of it. I think we have the engineering covered mostly. Although I still hear a lot of complaints about water shortages in terms of our the Wasco supply and so on, and those I think can be solved. Um, those are engineering solutions. I think by and large most of our issues with pipe-borne water in Dominica can be solved by engineering. But we need marketing, we need finance to be able to build a proper water industry. The last thing I would say before I leave is that I agree that government should play the role of creating an enabling environment for the industry. But it appears that we have a government in place right now that hasn't done that in 25 years. And that is what I mean when I say we have to move beyond or in spite of the government. Until we have a government that understands that and takes it seriously, we cannot just sit on our hands. We have to work around it. And the work around I'm suggesting is that, as Crispin said, water is is a product that has a ready-made demand. Water comes from Fiji with a label on it and comes to the Caribbean and compete with our water in the Caribbean. Not because it's cheaper, but because we're able to sell, they're able to do their marketing and sell it to us that is such a high quality that we'll buy it instead. And it sells at our high-end hotels. I'm saying that if they can do it from Fiji, we can do it from Dominica because we already have the branding as a nature island of the Caribbean. Everybody already knows Dominica is full of high quality water. 90% of the work has already been done. We just need to be able to position ourselves where we can produce the water, have the marketing experts that can position us in the minds of our customers, that they will value Dominica's water as a precious commodity, high quality commodity that it already is. And so, Mr. G, with that, I want to say thank you so much and good night to my fellow presenters, Dr. Andre, Lambi, Sherwin, Mr. Robin. It was a pleasure spending this 2 hours approximately with you tonight. Thank you.
It certainly has been. And Crispin, your final thoughts. I mean, you can see where Anthony ended.
Yes. Well, I think I would be remiss if I did not mention Father Coffee. who started the whole World Rivers Day recognition in Dominica every year in September. He and his organization, WAVE, Whitey Kubuli, Advancing
Viable environment.
Viable Environment. And Father Coffee has made it an annual commitment to educate the Dominican people about the importance of the rivers. And I applaud Father Coffee for that. He's always been a nationalist long before he was a priest. He knows what Dominica has and he knows the value of water. And he's saying to us, wait a minute, pay attention to the viability and survival and continuity of our rivers. Without those rivers, we will not have water. And I want us to pay greater attention to this water that we have. Just to give the listeners an idea, last year I was in Western Sahara. It only rains once in 365 days. They get rain only once. And when I tell them it rains every day in Dominica, they can't believe it. They marvel at that. That's the Sahara Desert. And we have a resource that we have failed up to this point to create an industry of something that we have in abundance. So I want to implore the government. Yes, you have begun to focus now on the water industry, but I want you to go the full 9 yards. Don't do this half-heartedly. One water plant, maybe let's say that's a start, but I want you to ramp that up in every successive budget that you're going to invest in water for export. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thanks a lot, Crispin. Well, the final word is yours, Dr. Andre.
Oh, yes. Let me thank the panelists. Brilliant contributions, quite frankly. Let me thank those who've stayed, listen. Let me echo a word of whether it's biblical or whether it's Bunny Wailer, I'm not sure, but those who thirst for righteousness will be blessed. Let me also hearken, as a friend has just coincidentally and uncannily made reference to a song by Bob Marley, with respect to water and those who thirst, as I said, for righteousness will be blessed. We are at that stage where, as many of the panelists have said, we have to appreciate what we've been blessed with. We have to ensure that this is not just a rat race where we are made to live at the expense of each other, or we are made to live after we destroy each other, but we are made to live harmoniously with each other. It seems to me that those entrusted with the privilege of governance should, at the very minimum, realize that this is a privilege, it's not a right, and that they are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that Dominicans gain control and power over themselves and of their destinies. And in essence, and in the ultimate reality, this is what governance is all about. This is basically what we are talking about. We have to be the stewards of our environment. We have to make sure that we are governed by the parable of the reaper. That is to say, we reap our resources in a fashion that will inure to the benefit of us all. That is the vision that we seek. That is the vision that will ensure the development of Dominica. I thank you and good night.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Andre. Let's leave on this note that I'm hoping that the authorities have been listening and that, in fact, they will take Crispin's advice and to create a policy environment that will create water industries and agribusiness, water-based agribusiness industries. I mean, go the whole 9 yards to create that policy environment, including the financing, which John is talking about. Because I mean, as we can see, as Dr. Andre pointed out, an airline came in and the government was able to guarantee them by putting certain money down that they would hold the seats to Dominica. So let us face it, you cannot relegate local industries of such a major industry like water to just fight on their own. You have to understand that Dominica has a place in the world for water and that we should take that policy very seriously and to really engage with the local private sector, not just be in parliament criticizing Josephine Gabriel for their bottle caps. Something that could be done privately, to call and say, okay, I saw a problem with this, let's fix this. I mean, come on. So, I mean, let's hope that the government is taking the whole question of creating an enabling policy environment, taking that seriously for water industry and water-based industries. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the panel tonight. Thank you, Irving. Thank you, Crispin. Thank you, Anthony and John. Thanks a lot, Lambi, Sherwin, and all of the persons who are with us on the radio, on the internet, on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much for staying with us tonight. So, good night, everybody. Take care.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Yes, we want to say good night, everybody. Thank you for listening, and especially all manufacturers across Dominica. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you in the next couple of weeks when we have our AGM.
Thank you, John.
View on Q, the big station. Insights into where the people of Dominica and the Caribbean came from. Understanding our past. Embracing our present. Charting the way forward into our future. Together, eliminating poverty. Embracing justice, peace, and togetherness. The Global View on Q. Networking Dominica with the rest.